Greetings. Welcome to the Red Hen Press Poetry Hour, brought to you by your home away from home, the Broad Stage at home. I'm your host, Sandra Tsing Loh. This is my messy house as opposed to the Broad Stage. And today's theme for this evening, perhaps appropriate for this 5th month of the pandemic, can you believe it? Finding truths and creating art in exile. To set the table for the really amazing evening we have for you, I'd like to welcome co-founder and managing editor of Red Hen Press, Kate Gale. Hello, Kate. There you are, virtually.
Great to be with you.
It's great to see you. And also artistic and executive director of the Broad Stage, Mr. Maestro Rob Bayless.
Hey, guys.
Oh my God, and I love your jacket, the Maestro's jacket, indeed. So
Thank you.
It's a little bit hard to believe that we actually started this back in March, talking about this, the first season, 7 episodes of the Red Hen Press Poetry, and here, beginning the second season. So do you want to tell us a little bit, well, Kate, about the first season, your thoughts as we pivot to the second, where we're
Well, when we were first doing this, we just kind of jumped into the pool, as you say. We jumped into the deep end and started doing this, and we had some fabulous poets, Camille Dungy, Richard Blanco, Major Jackson, Allison Joseph. We really had some fun with this. And after we were rolling along, we were doing this late at night on Saturday nights. Basically, it felt like we were kind of crouched around our computers late at night Saturdays. It was 11 o'clock at night on the East Coast when our audience would be joining us. We would be drinking and doing poetry. And it felt like, okay, since we realized this was going to go on for a long time, let's regroup a minute and decide how we want to do this on an ongoing basis, because we really wanted to do a good job of reaching our audience, and we wanted to do this maybe in a little bit more measured way. And so we started talking about maybe doing this during the week, maybe doing this on a monthly basis. And we were obviously aware that also that there was a lot of programming happening, and so we really wanted to think about what we were doing. And so our team started talking about it, and started also talking about what really got us excited was that Rob had some of the people that are going to be part of future Broad programming to bring into this. And Rob will say something about that, but that really started to make some magic happen here.
Oh, thank you, Kate. And I would agree wholeheartedly. I mean, this all began out of course, a great relationship between Red Hen Press and the Broad Stage, which, you know, the Red Hen Press has a great home at the Broad Stage in the Edie, and we've really enjoyed getting to know each other this year and working on the series together and thinking about the coming season, what would have been the 2021 season. As we sort of imagined our next steps, it seemed a great thing for us during these next 6 months to align some of what's going to be happening at the Broad Stage in 21 with some of what we can do right now, and to find those sort of natural allegiances between those artists who we have coming and those who are with Red Hen. So we determined first to look at the 3 theater artists, all of whom are creators and writers as well, and to actually have them come and interact with the poets of Red Hen. So that's where we started, and this is the first of 6 episodes. It will be the second season, and I can tell you now that the second one of these will be on August 27th. I think we're again at 6 p.m. Pacific. And we're super excited about where we're starting tonight. This all sort of came from our invitation to Nassim Soleimanpour to come to the Broad Stage to perform his incredible solo piece, Nassim. And we brought the idea of working with Nassim to Red Hen Press and co-curated what you'll experience this evening.
again, and the theme, Finding Truths and Creating Art in Exile, and it's truly international today, as you'll see. Now the time zones are getting really crazy. So it's going to be really exciting. So with that, we will pivot. Shall we pivot to our first poet then? All right. Okay, we will see you anon. Okay, and with that, let me introduce Sholeh Wolpe, poet, writer, and literary translator. Sholeh Wolpe. She said it rhymes with Olay, so I'm trying to. Many languages will be heard this evening. Sholeh Wolpe's performances, solo or in collaboration with musicians and artists, have been hailed by audiences as mesmerizing, as you will see. She's the recipient of a 2014 Penheim, 2013 Midwest Book Award, and 2010 Lois Roth Persian Translation Prize, as well as artist fellowship and residencies in the US, Mexico, Spain, Australia, and Switzerland. Multinational. Her plays have been finalists and semifinalists at Bay Area Playwrights Festival, Eugene O'Neill National Playwrights Conference, Centenary Stage Women Playwrights, and Ashland New Plays Festival. Welcome, Sholeh.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
And Sholeh, can you tell us where you are at right now, what time it is?
I'm in Los Angeles and it's 6:00 something.
Well, welcome. So, and I think you're going to start, would you like to start reading some poetry before we start?
Yes, absolutely. I think I'm going to read 3 pieces that has to do with the theme of tonight. And in a way, via this poetry, I guess your audiences will also be introduced to where I come from and who I am. The world grows blackthorn walls. Tall, stiff, and spiny try to make it to the other side and risk savage thorns. We who left home in our teens, children who crossed boundaries and were torn by its 1,000 serrated tongues, we who bear scars that bloom and bloom beneath healed skins, who have we become? I ask myself, is home my ghost? Does it wear my underwear folded neatly in the antique chest of drawers I bought 20 years ago? Nest inside my blouse that hangs from one metal hanger I've been meaning to discard? Is it lost between these lines of books shelved alphabetical in a language I was not born to, or here on the lip of this chipped cup left behind by my lover long gone? I carry seeds in my mouth, plant turmeric, cardamom, and tiny aromatic cucumbers in this garden. Water them with rain I wring from my grandmother's song. They will grow, I know, against these blackthorn walls. They can push through anything, uncut. I left home at 13. I hadn't lived enough to know how not to love. Home was the Caspian Sea, the busy bazaars, the aroma of kebab and rice, Friday lunches, picnics by mountain streams. I never meant to stay away. They said, come back and you will die. Exile is a suitcase with a broken strap. I fill up 100 notebooks with scribbles, throw them into fire and begin to write again, this time tattooing the words on my forehead, this time writing only not to forget. Complacency is communicable like the common cold. I swim upstream to lay my purple eggs. They say draw sustenance from this land, but look how my fruits hang in spirals and smell of old notebooks and lace. What is a transplanted tree but a time being who has adapted to adoption? Spirits urge and spirits go, but I speak only to the future. Perhaps it's only in exile that spirits arrive. They weep and wail at the door of the temple where I sit at the edge of an abyss. But even this is an illusion. I'm an outsider. I know what it's like to be an outsider, a khareji. I know how English sounds when every word is only music. I know how it feels not to be an American, an English, a French, call them Amrikai, Ingilisi, Faransavi, see them, see me as alien, immigrant, Irani. But I've been here so long, they may call me American with American husband and American children. But mark this, I do not belong anywhere. I have an accent in every language I speak. I was in Florida and I gotta get this out. Okay, I was in Florida and I was stuck there for a few hours, and I was in the middle of translating this amazing book. It's a 12th century Sufi mystic poetry by Attar, who's considered Rumi's master, and the text is beautiful, but I needed to understand everything as I was translating. And so I was in this Florida airport and I had all these Persian books spread around me as I was working. And I realized that I was attracting a lot of attention. So this is, since we are going to talk to Nassim, who's a playwright, and I'm a playwright, and we're going to talk about that. This is a prose poem has that kind of like a play quality to it. TSA, sitting with 3 open books, black with the meandering calligraphy of a terrorist language, is a terrible idea at an American airport. But 5 hours early, what's a girl to do but risk it, open what she must under the watchful eyes of TSA and cameras that blink when a person of unknown, dark, curly hair origin is spotted with undecipherable texts, possibly manuals of mass destruction of something. A few people pass by, too casually perhaps, and peek at the books, but in the end, it's a sweeper who soft shoes his way towards me, a Latino Fred Astaire with fake mustache and bushy eyebrows. He runs his broom to and fro, moving dust closer and closer to my ridiculously high-heeled red shoes, then stops. He pretends to notice me for the first time, puts his small chin on the stick of his broom, gathers his mouth as if around a cut lemon, squints, then asks in Spanish, ¿Qué es esto? ¿Greco? Good move, I think. So you no hablas inglés, amigo? I look up and give him a sly smile. He parts his lips slightly. His teeth are corn yellow, a smoker for sure. But that mustache, it takes all my strength to not reach up and pull to see if it comes off. I answer in Spanish, no, this isn't Greek, it's Persian poetry. He lifts his chin, says, bien, hablas español. He then bends over the book for a closer look. I say this time in English, poetry, and point to the shape of the couplets. See, I say, a line of Persian poetry consists of 2 hemistitches separated like this. I point to the blank space between separated texts. He ungathers his lips from their concentrated pose, nods, mumbles something about how he hated memorizing poetry at school. Then in perfect, accentless English, don't miss your flight. With that, he turns on his heels and just as deliberately soft shoes back towards someplace over there, broom still in hand, past the door that appears and disappears like an itch scratched. A true story. And that concludes what I was going to read.
And I love that it ends with an itch scratch, because listening to you, first of all, you are mesmerizing, and it is like for me, it's like hearing opera. And I had a German mother and a Chinese father. They took us to learn opera, like hours and hours of opera. So
yeah, I love opera.
Is as though someone is singing music. And I think also listening to that, we're going to talk about some other things in terms of language. I love that you described language that sounds like music instead of I don't understand language, it sounds like music, or that you speak in a different accent. And I wonder to what extent you find all languages beautiful or musical. Or
actually I do, because when I was a child, when I didn't speak a lick of English in Tehran, I used to turn on the American radio and then the British radio, and for me, whatever I heard was pure music. I didn't understand it. And so I would try to mimic a little of it. For example, I would hear the music in the British accent and then the American. I could totally hear that. And I think perhaps this is why after so many years, I still have an accent, because I just can't escape this music that comes at me from, and I lived in Trinidad, I lived in the UK, and then I came here and I got all confused about what music I was mimicking.
Right. That even German sounds beautiful, which to me, and that was the first language that I heard and learned. Some people consider it quite harsh, but I love that you see that.
Yeah, I don't. I love German opera. And although I don't speak German and I don't understand it, but I love the music of it. I don't think there is a language in the world that actually I do not like.
That's very sporting of you. Thank you. So to pivot to the idea of home and exile, I think for you, would you say thematically, and is home a physical place, something that's in our minds, something that's transported in a suitcase?
Well, I left home when I was 13 years old. My parents sent me to Trinidad, island of Trinidad in the Caribbean, and I lived with my grandmother and with my aunt. And I went to a Catholic school, and I'm not even Catholic. So it was just all that. And then I was sent to a British boarding school, and I finished my high school there before coming to this country. So I think a home for me became a holy grail, because after the Iranian Revolution, my parents couldn't go back, therefore I couldn't go back. It was like there was too much danger, etc., etc. And I looked for home for a very, very long time. But something, especially Attar, the Sufi mystic poet, who I'm absolutely in love with, author of The Conference of the Birds, taught me that home is inside of us. That if we can feel that inside of ourselves, we are at home everywhere. Borders will disappear, because no matter where you are, the people around you are your countrymen and women. They're your brothers and sisters. And I really like this idea of getting rid of, like, every day, I hope people, hey, you people who are listening, please, every day when you wake up, imagine for half an hour that you do not belong anywhere, that your home is inside of you, and in a way, borders disappear. And then at some point you realize, well, what is imaginary and what is real? I think borders are imaginary. We've sort of like created this thing that doesn't even exist, right? So for me, this idea of being in exile and not being able to go back, it's been hurtful, but it's taught me to grow as a human being, and I'm grateful for that.
And that's so beautifully said, and it is really wonderful wisdom to share with people. In this pandemic quarantine time, has any of this been accentuated for you, or how has it felt to be a person and an artist in this time?
Well, on one hand, I'm grateful so I can meet my deadlines, and I've had quite a few they're continuing, because I'm very distractible and I travel a lot and I get truly distracted by that. But on the other hand, I'm a people person. Like I feel people's energies when it's around me. So when I've surrounded myself with people and friends I trust, and I love their energy, and I miss them because in a way they feed my energy, and my energy, if it's not fed, that creativity. I don't know how people go off like in a cabin and just they think they're being creative. I can't do that. I need to eat energy, from other people.
And thus we are today virtually in our boxes, and we will be having a conversation. And I think that energy will be very infectious because I've seen you all interact before.
Yes.
So that. Okay, so we're going to pivot to our next poet, and then we'll bring you back at the end of the hour. So Sholeh will return at the end with a conversation with our other poets. So Lory Bedikian's The Book of Lamenting won the 2010 Philip Levine Prize in Poetry. Her poems have been published in the Connecticut Review, Portland Review, Poetry International, Poet Lore, and Heliotrope, among other journals, and have been included in Blue Arc West, an anthology of California poets. Poets and writers chose her work as a finalist for the 2010 California Writers Exchange Award, and she joins us on video.
Hi, I'm Lory Bedikian. Thank you so much to the Broad Stage, to Red Hen Press, to the hosts, the readers. It's a real honor to be reading with you here tonight. I'd like to begin with an epigraph from Audre Lorde. Now my throat is clear, and perhaps I shall speak again. It's from her poem, Paperweight. I'll begin with one poem from my collection, The Book of Lamenting, and I'll be reading two poems. Prayer for my immigrant relatives. While they wait in long lines, legs shifting, fingers growing tired of holding handrails, pages of paperwork, give them patience. Help them to recall the cobalt Mediterranean or the green valleys full of vineyards and sheep. When people's words resemble the buzz of beehives, help them to hear the music of home sung from balconies overflowing with woven rugs and bundled vegetables. At night, when the worry beads are held in one palm and a cigarette lit in the other, give them the memory of their first step onto solid land, after much ocean, air, and clouds. Remind them of the phone call back home saying, "We arrived. Yes, thank God. We made it. We are here." And I'll close with this poem. My father was from Lebanon and my mother was from Syria, so I'm the daughter of immigrants. And my father passed away in July of 2018, and my mother just passed away on March 5th at the beginning of this pandemic. I dedicate this to her. Her name was Lory Bedikian. When your mother dies during a pandemic, the walk down the hospital hallway does not frighten you, although masks and gloves and masks, and the woman who wraps her purse in a plastic bag while disinfecting the soles of her shoes, you give your mother air kisses, 4 or 5, a final gesture. She returns the weight of wires, almost the weight of every world she has known. They say maybe a malaria drug can save the others. Could have saved her dying father from an outbreak in Syria, but there's nothing to save her now. There should be a specific word for the nerve it takes to scribble, "I want to leave this world," on a clipboard not meant for one's last words. There should be a word for the last moment one fumbles for an insignificant pen. What is said and not said is poison no matter what. You embrace no one. The measurement of 6 feet is your longitude and latitude, and your mother will soon be side by side with your dead father. You knew it was the last words to each other. No one cried. The hallways full of masks and gloves and gloves and masks. You at home only to hide, and the world is told to stay inside. Inside. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lory. It's incredibly moving, particularly in this time, in any time really, but particularly now. Now we go to our theater artist, our Broad theater artist, who will be again appearing at the Broad stage at the Edie this April, and it is Nassim Soleimanpour. An independent multidisciplinary theater maker from Tehran, Iran, Nassim Soleimanpour's plays have been translated into 20 languages. There's languages again. Best known for White Rabbit, Red Rabbit, written to travel the world when he couldn't, his work has been awarded the Dublin Fringe Festival Best New Performance, Summer Works Outstanding New Performance Text Award, and the Arches Brick Award, Edinburgh Fringe, as well as picking up nominations for a Total Theatre and Brighton Fringe Pick of Edinburgh Award. And you know, Edinburgh, how competitive it is there. But of course, as I said, most importantly, Nassim is bringing his show to the Broad stage in April 2021, entitled Nassim. Welcome, Nassim.
Hey, how are you doing?
Good. And now I must ask you where you are and what time is it there?
I am sitting on my couch. I'm in Berlin, and this is 3:30 in the morning.
Ach du Lieber. Didn't sound beautiful when I said it, but I bet if Sholeh said it would sound amazing. So can you tell the audience a bit about this fascinating show that you're doing, Nassim, in April?
Sure. Well, Nassim is a show which is co-produced with the Bush Theatre in London in 2017, 3 years ago. The concept of the show follows the old show White Rabbit, Red Rabbit, as you mentioned, which is we cast a new actor every show, male, female, different ages, and they don't know what they're gonna do. It's a cold read. They just show up. So if any of them are listening to what we're gonna say, then they should turn it off. They're not allowed even, to go see the show. They're not supposed to Google it. And that's how the show starts. There are concepts of language, home. I mean, I was mesmerized by Sholeh's poem, not only because it was beautiful, but because it is like she mentioned the word outsider, khareji, in Farsi. So if you come and see Nassim, this is one of the Farsi words that you would learn during the show.
And
I don't know how much I want to spoil it for you, but yes.
Yes. So the audience, just to set it up, because it's a wonderful and entertaining and captivating and surprising show. Surprising in terms of we can't even reveal some of the amazing things that happen. But so the audience walks in, and then in what's on the stage, can you just paint a picture as to what people can expect when they walk in?
I mean, it's almost nothing on stage.
It's a black box.
It's just a black box. It's a table, and it's a chair, and then the producer would introduce the poor performer who's probably shivering or laughing, and then we take it from there. But it is a journey. I mean, I partly perform in the show in my own way. I mean, I'm not sure if I can say I'm performing or I'm not performing. And it connects us to other countries, literally. It is a journey. I mean, it's not only for you. It is a surprise. It's also a surprise for us as the team who produced and created the show, because a new actor every night, people do things that they want to do. So we've done it, I think, 400 times now in a dozen languages, I think 12 or 13 languages. in different countries. And still we get surprised every now and then. We're like, oh, okay, so this is what she did. No, yeah, that's nice. So we're all in the same boat.
How does it work? I mean, so, your work has been done in 20 different languages. So you go to a new country. Do you learn the language when it's being translated? How does that, or are you just fluent in 20 different languages?
Well, I mean, the old plays like Rabbit, they are, you're right, like 30 something languages. It's just the play. The play is inside an envelope. It gets translated. Of course, I send instructions for the translators because it's a bit tricky, such kind of format. And then, yeah, the actor just reads what they've translated. With this one, because as I said, I am partly involved physically, I have to study the language and I have to know things in their language. And it's basically a barter. No, they teach me their language, I teach them my language, and we meet somewhere in between, hopefully.
And have you learned anything that surprised you about any of these languages, similarities, differences? I mean, it just seems like language brings, in this case, it brings people together. It's a way to bridge.
Yeah, I mean, there are similarities which are surprising, like basic words like mom. No, it's like in different languages they sound similar. Like in Arabic, I can say it's umma. In Farsi, it is maman. In English, it's mom. In German, it's mutti. It's like there's always like an M somewhere in the word.
Right.
And there are like, I mean, there are things that maybe there's no logic. Like I remember in Korea when we did it in Hangul, I assume when they were like telling me like, come on, they were using something like kamsa Nassim, which I later like found in different countries. They're like, oh, so we have like something similar here in Europe. I assume it was like in Spanish or in Danish that we had a similar thing. And the structure of the language and the feelings. I mean, what I can say is very beautiful is no matter what language you speak, you are transporting the similar human feelings. As now we're all in pandemic, no? It's like no matter if I speak Farsi or German here in Berlin, I am like trapped inside my own home. So that is something that you don't need to really know the language to know the feeling. Or as Sholeh said, when you listen to the radio, no?
Yeah.
Like when you would get a sense.
So, and I think that also audiences should know about this, that it's audience participatory, isn't it?
Yeah, not like really, you're not gonna lift the whole load. It is really voluntarily you can take part. But yeah, this old format of like there is a wall and I'm sitting here and I mean, I live in Berlin and you live in a country where like your president is talking about building a wall now. I think we don't need any more walls in the theater so that like this is the stage and this is the audience. We need less walls in this world.
That's fantastic. That's beautiful. Okay, so let's bring Sholeh back for one moment to just comment on what she's heard thus far before we go to our next poet. But what do you hear when you're hearing Nassim talk about that?
I love it because I think what Nassim is bringing to stage is this sense of bringing the audience into his world and also taking himself into their world, and in a way bridging the gap. And I love that because I really believe that isn't it true, Nassim John, that we artists are bridge builders, while I think, and don't shoot me for this, I think politicians are bridge breakers. And so we're in constant, not all politicians, not all, artists, but, we're always in that, I don't want to say struggle, but, opposition.
Yeah, but using language to divide people as opposed to words to bring them together.
Not just language, but also ideas and just bringing them over to your side and then going over to their side. And then eventually you're all together.
Can I just say, I love watching you speak because it's like you're dancing in your living room. It is like, see? Yes. Nassim, your thoughts to what Sholeh just said?
Well, I agree with her. The beauty of poems and what poets can do is that they are like snipers. No, they have a feeling, they find a sentence, is home my ghost? This is what she said. No, it's like a very beautiful sentence. To me as a playwright, I think it's funny, like something approaches me and I'm like, yeah, I know if I was a poet, it would be a line, but then I struggle for like 75 minutes in a show and it takes me 7 years to write it. So it's different versions of the same bridge. Plus, I think, that's how I look at the world. It's not like I'm a playwright, you're a poet, she's a politician. I think we all carry, all these characters inside us. When I have to deal with my dog, trust me, I become a politician. I do things that I'm like, oh my God, it's very nasty what I'm doing. So we all carry all these characters inside us.
Wait, yeah. How do you talk to your dog? How would you talk to your dog if you were mad at your dog? What would you do?
To be honest, we're all lost in translation here in Berlin. We switch from German to Farsi to English, of course, because we work in English. But the funny thing is just like sometimes my wife has this beautiful joke. She says like, you and I speak a thing that we think it's German. We understand it. No one understands it in Berlin. Yeah, so apparently we've invented a new language.
Yeah, my mother was German, and then in Brazil she'd say, "Can we have a tauli?" Like if she meant Talia. It's like, yeah, I think that's so funny. Like immigrants moving from the and have these words.
Yeah, but Nassim, I have really I write plays and I write poetry, and I feel you're right, but it's still the sense the bridge making may take a little longer with one than the other, but the idea is the same. I also have to do this because I was on Homa Sarshar's show. She's a beautiful, wonderful lady, radio personality. And I have to say, Iranian aziz, خیلی ممنون و متشکر که تماشا میکنید.
Oh, she said, dear Iranians, we really thank you that you're watching this.
So beautiful, so beautiful. Okay, let's pivot to another poet, and then we'll come all back again at the very end, so you can work on some more thoughts for us. Fantastic. Okay, so we're going to Armineh Iknadosian. Born in Beirut, Lebanon, Armineh immigrated to the United States in 1978 to escape the Civil War. She's the author of All That Wasted Fruit from Main Street Rag Press. She earned an MFA from Antioch University, where she was awarded a fellowship for summer poetry in Idlewild. After teaching English for 20 years, she wrote United States of Love and Other Poems. In 2015, during her tenure as a teacher, the Los Angeles Writing Project awarded her a fellowship for their summer residency. Iknadosian currently lives close to the sea with Henry the cat. All right, we welcome her on video.
Hi, everybody. My name is Armineh Iknadosian, and thank you to Red Hen Press for inviting me to be a part of this virtual event with the Broad. I will be reading 2 poems from my book, All That Wasted Fruit. The first poem is titled, Our Customs. Eat boiled wheat and pomegranate seeds to celebrate a baby's new tooth. Announce sweet bath water to a newly bathed person, and they must give you their clean cheek to kiss. This is lucky and good. This makes God happy. Read your fortune in the dark maps left behind in coffee cups and believe it, but don't bet on it. Name your daughter or son Revenge. This is not a metaphor. This means they will put fear in their enemies, the devil, and their own children. Throw a raw egg at the tire of a brand new car, but don't wash it off. That would cause a tragic accident. It happened to my uncle. When you announce travel plans, end with, Astvadzuze, and always follow praise with a criticism, especially with those you love the most. If your palms itch, this is a sign of money coming to you. This is not a rash, but an invitation by God to buy a lottery ticket. Blue glass eyes ward off evil, so hang one from your rear view mirror, pin one on the clothes of a newborn. If they break, a tragedy has been avoided. And when you spot a new moon, laugh out loud. That's God smiling at you, and it would be rude to not smile back. And my second poem is titled Reckoning. And thank you again to Red Hen Press and the Broad for this opportunity. Reckoning. My birdstone is peridot, from the Arabic parida, Greek for peridona, giving plenty. Left behind from Pele, the goddess of fire, it wards off evil, or is supposed to. I tell the world about my underrated armor and wonder why she doesn't love me enough. Enough is far from the feet of despair. Nothing left than flesh found lacking. A suit of fractured bones and fraught nerves that betray me in winter, every winter. Today, the infinite dilemma is finding green in the volcanic ash, in olivine, mineral that purifies. Grant me the truth left behind by fire. Grant me the strength of the oldest volcano. Grant me the words to risk everything. Thank you.
Incredible reading by Armine Ignadosian. Reminds me, I forgot to name my children Revenge. It's a very good tip. Amazing poetry, just really amazing. And so now we come to Nathalie Handal, who's the author of 7 books of poetry, most recently, Life in a Country album. She's also the editor of the groundbreaking classic, The Poetry of Arab Women, a contemporary anthology, winner of the PEN Oakland Joseph Miles Book Award, and named one of the top 10 feminist books by The Guardian, and co-editor of the W.W. Norton landmark anthology, Language for a New Century, Contemporary Poetry from the Middle East, Asia, and Beyond, both Academy of American Poets bestsellers. Welcome, Nathalie.
Thank you. It's so wonderful to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
And can you tell us where you are and what time it is?
I'm in New York City, and it's about 9:44. So we've had all the coast, yeah.
All the coasts. So do you want to start reading some poetry?
I'll start with some poems.
Right.
I think the first poem we've been speaking about exile. I grew up in 4 continents and with really no native tongue, but coming from a symphony of 5 languages.
Wow.
And exile is an unsolvable grief. And I understand now, if we think we can achieve resolve with the question of displacement and identity, we will be defeated. The aim is to maintain equipoise as if we were playing a dangerous sport. To me, movement has become creativity. It's in the imprecision of travel that I find the precision of language. And so this poem, coming from my last collection, is entitled Orphic. As a child, I believed God was in the wind that carried us elsewhere, that departures were returns. I buried the sun in my father's ashtray to see him in eyes in Berlin or Stockholm, where the cold is another country, longing another landscape, and the past comes back. Close the door. Solitude will not leave. Close the window. Light will not escape. Close the wooden trunk. Memory will not vanish. Close your eyes. Home will not disappear. Close everything close. All will remain like Mostar and Jerusalem, like our Roman chants, Byzantium icon, Muslim prayers. The years passed. I looked for death in Palermo and found my mother's womb. Looked for life in Thessaloniki and found a song about death. Looked for my image in Venice and found all my images. Crossed Trieste with my heart and Naples without my hesitations, memorized Marseille from Notre-Dame de la Garde, counted all my dreams in Akka, found my name in the Colosseum, listened to the lemons fall for hours in Rome, waited for my lover to tell me the sea can't break, and found the musician born in a small town that reminded me that music always takes us back to the cities we are made from. The next poem is entitled Europa Nostra. I grew up part of my life in Europe, and I still am there quite often. And there's a big crisis in the Mediterranean, and refugees coming from Africa and the Middle East and Asia. And this is a poem about this refugee crisis. Europa Nostra. Now that we are guests in our bodies, how do we survive? Zainab operated a boat to be close to the 103 members of her family who drowned. Bassem learned to speak a language without an alphabet. Atek gathered feathers from trembling snow. Beckham carried splintered glass across 100 mountains. Bina stole prayers from forgotten bodies. Saba held the sound of the drums as if it were breaths. Shinolo kept the sun in a folded leaf under a mattress. Roya kept the shadow of the Caspian Sea in the man who needed her. Mikolo dreamed the mystery turned cruel by another dream. Maybe the past is the beginning and return is staying absent. Meanwhile, when someone says toughen up, look at them until they fade. So in my new collection, Life in a Country album, for Americans, you think of country music, but for the rest of us who don't have that reference, it's not country music. But there is a part of my family that went to the American South. And this poem is entitled Midnight Train to Georgia, because my mother listened to Gladys Knight's song when I was young. She loved that song. But later on, when I was listening to that song and I came to the United States and I became American, on actually the day Barack Obama became president of the United States in January 20th, I also thought that exile has no mercy, as I saw some of my cousins from the American South go fight war in the Middle East. Midnight Train to Georgia. My cousin, the army captain, didn't say much. Then one day he wrote to her, "Didn't I adore you harder than silence? Didn't you know I kept trying to reach you, but kept appearing on the other side of wherever I wasn't? Didn't you know I tore time into pieces to understand how I harmed you? Kiss me one last time." Who can really escape the heart well enough not to leave a trace? Kiss me one last time. Didn't you know I was afraid to count the music on the other side of midnight? To count the steps that would never lead me to where I could tell you, free me. And I'm going to just end with this one last poem, which I wrote during this pandemic. And it was recently published, and it's really celebrating togetherness, and it's entitled Voyages. Shut off the lights, the music, close the window and travel. Let your body gather voices as if they're flowers in an infinite garden. Thank your spirit for the flight. Thank the earth for the echoes and empathy, for emptying your fears of time past. Be certain of your direction. Your heart knows the road, the one with needles under your feet that feels less painful than all the dying around. The one that is made of water, where floating is a long and short breath, and always be kind to the healing earth. Don't be tempted by its roars, which are its pains. Let the ache out. Gather all yourselves, angel and bird, ancestor and bark. Gather your wanderings so you can rest for a while. Then awake to help those who didn't make it back. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nathalie. Amazing, amazing. Now we're going to bring back Sholeh and Nassim to have a little chat, literally on East Coast, West Coast, and Europe. So Sholeh and Nassim, what are your responses to what you heard Nathalie read?
Beautiful. These are wonderful poets. I mean, you know, I connect with a lot of these poems, and wow, what would we do without poetry? I don't know. What about you, Nassim?
Well, I am so touched as well. I'm really touched, especially by the second one was really touching to me.
And I love Gladys Knight being brought in because that America is part of this conversation, and maybe it's obviously America is not a perfect country, but I think somehow the musicality of all these languages, I just kind of like felt comforted that you brought music like a Gladys Knight reference was wonderful. I mean, Nathalie, how do you feel? Do you feel New York is your city? Is the music is it your city?
I mean, I would say I feel that I'm a New Yorker because New York is the world. So in that sense, I feel quite New Yorker. But that said, I mean, I grew up in 4 continents, and I continue to exist in 4 continents because my parents are one place, my siblings are another place, my friends are another place. I'm based in New York, really, but of course so I continue to have this life, you know, and so I have many cities that are part of me, but they are part of you in very different ways. They converse with you in very different ways, you know.
Yeah, and I sort of thought of Sholeh in the TSA, like in an airport, writing in an airport, of the sense of being that you're traveling. When you're traveling, you're creating. That is just, yeah.
Well, there's the thing about, I mean, there's one thing which is travel and privilege, and then there's another thing which is borders, and that isn't really, to me, imaginary in the sense that, I mean, people have a lot of issues with papers and being in refugee camps and being in really difficult situations, and that isn't imaginary at all. I mean, the lives of these people that go from trying to get the boat and then arriving on the shores of Europe and then trying to make it to someplace, a lot of times Germany, you know, wanting to get to Germany, but then still being stuck in these camps. I mean, you know, so when we speak about these topics, it's really important, I think, to speak about the specificity, because I think that's where a lot of, like everything anyways, that's where, just like saying about Middle Easterners and speaking about the Muslim world and speaking about specificities are very important in order for us to really understand.
And I think the word exile, it can mean so many different, it can be forced exile, it can be chosen exile. And I think some people who've just lived in one country, that would be me, kind of understanding the shadings of the word refugee, the word exile, and I think that's part of language that is so rich and complex.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm Palestinian, you know, so there, you know, the home itself is something that has been, you know, that has a completely different shape. And in addition to that, I come from Bethlehem and Jerusalem, which are very specific cities that take a lot of space in the imagination of the West, you know. So you know, exile even takes another dimension in that sense. Sorry.
I think this idea of exile is really interesting because in this country, you say you've not been elsewhere, right, Sandra? Is that what you were saying?
Well,
No, I mean, yeah, I mean in terms of in terms of home. We can be in exile in the same country within the same family. How many of you viewers have experienced a sense of exile from an uncle, from a brother, from a parent? You know, it's the root of it is the same. And what I love about art, poetry, writing, plays is that you know, the science of colors, how when you put different colors next to each other, they change. Then all of a sudden the green isn't really what you thought green was. And I think that's what art and poetry and a play like, you know, like Nassim's does. It allows people to see this idea that we think is exile or being a refugee or poverty or whatever you're communicating. When you put it next to other things, it changes meaning, it changes colors, and that's beautiful. That's what I love about the stage in particular, but you know, poetry and visual arts.
And I have to say, the comments from the viewers have been so powerful, and I think what you guys have been saying have been so appreciative. I can't cite all the comments, but Karin Arman says, I am an Armenian from Iran. I speak several languages. When someone asks, where are you from? It gets challenging. But I do think that theater is a place with Nassim's piece where when people come to the Broad stage to see Nassim, they'll all be home in a certain way. Would that be fair to say?
Well, that's the hope, yes. And if I may, I want to say something about our origin or where we are from. As much as we're struggling to break these borders or to make them, sadly, I think we are finding new definitions of our countries. Like, I am more of a vegan than an Iranian. No, this is a new country.
In Berlin.
But this is a new country. This is a more, I mean, if we were like, suppose, you know, to receive passports and you were like, yeah, if you like Corona now, if there is a test for this thing, and if they give us passports, like, you know, like I did the vaccination, or like I've got it and now I'm alive. So I belong to the country of I'm free to go wherever I want. So these concepts never they never existed. I remember when we were like 8, 9 in Iran, they were teaching us the Iranian map and we had to draw it. And I always thought, why do I go right? Why do I go east? It could be like a square or a circle. And I made this a stupid question, like who draw this line first? And still I don't understand who did it first. I understand this is geography and this is history, da. But what I'm trying to say is that this has been our job. We just draw the lines and then we erase them so that we draw new lines.
Yeah. And the lines that we draw, Nassim, I mean, you know, you're from Iran. Iran people think is just one people. We are not. We are a combination, like a group of variety of ethnicities in that country. I recently, believe me, I didn't know this until very recently. My grandmother was Kurdish. I didn't know that. Like, no one bothered to tell me, not my grandmother, my great-grandmother. And, you know, but they consider themselves Iranian. What is your background, Nassim? Are you from?
Well, I am like, yeah, my dad is from the Lory side. My mom is from the north. I was born in Tehran, raised in Shiraz. I agree with you. I mean, I used to blame people that they would ask me, do you speak Arabic? Because I'm like, no, I'm a Persian, and Persia fought, you know, Arabs. But the more I traveled, which I spent, I think like the last 2 years, I was away for 500 days, almost most of the 2 years, visiting different countries. And I made stupid questions. No, like I was like in a country and I was like telling, like in Korea, I remember I was learning their language because of the show. And I was like, so Hangul sounds like Japanese, Chinese, and everyone was like, and I was like, oh my God, how stupid I am. No, I'm like living in my own bubble, thinking like I know everything because I read this and I read that. It's a big world. I mean, I understand. I lived in New York for 5 months because of the show. When you say New York is like the world in its own, but I think it's a very bigger world. It's like we have like, huge. You lived in different continents, as you said. I bet you agree with me, Nathalie.
Yeah. And Nathalie is from like all over. I mean,
exactly.
I have to say, I mean, I live in Queens, and I have to say, it's a pretty cool. It's the most ethnically diverse place in the nation, and it is the place where I've met the most, that like all kinds of different people from China, I've called for different people from Iran. I mean, it's so multiple, you know, like 800 languages. That's incredible. Dialects. I mean, you know, Sicilian. I mean, we're talking, it's pretty rich. So in that sense, I think that makes New York quite special, you know, but, you know, Berlin has become incredibly diverse. And then, as you guys are saying, which is really important, is that the richness and diversity of a country that we don't speak about, like in Iran, all different, and that goes for every other country, right? Same, Germany. I mean, you know, the North and the South, and all of it. There's so much diversity within every single country.
Yeah.
It's an extraordinary conversation. We are actually out of time, even though we should go to another room and have all the food we're talking about and all the beverages and continue it, because obviously it's such a rich and amazing conversation. So so thank you to you all till we meet again in our various boxes and our various times.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Not in our boxes, hopefully, you know.
The real world, yes. That concludes this hour of the Red Hen Press Poetry Hour. And so come back on August 27th, where the theme will be climate change and the environment. And it will feature playwright Alana Mitchell, whose play Seasick will be at the Broad Stage in April. And also buy your tickets ASAP. You can pre-order online through the Broad for Nassim's show, Nassim, at the Broad Stage in April. So till the next, I'm Sandra Tsing Loh.